super duper awesome. And just really being here for we've let us use this space a few times, and it's always been wonderful. And these TVs are new; they're just keep upgrading stuff. So, cheers to 1010. So do UX. Our mission is to create opportunities for anyone to learn and share knowledge about the field of user experience. So we do that through workshops, we do that through panelists, we do that through discussions, but everything's focused on that mission. We have a couple organizers that help put this wonderful thing together. We have myself, who is right here, and me. We have Nat, who actually started UX, so many cheers to him and the number of years that have been, this whole thing has been happening in the community that you created. We got Wes, who's been doing a ton of the heavy lifting of late, and Jason, who's also been doing a huge amount. We also have another organizer who's not here, Abhishek. He's out in Vegas for a company conference, but he is here with us in spirit and wished everyone well and happy anniversary. We also have a couple folks that are a part of our planning team. So if anyone from the planning team wants to raise your hand or stand up, and these are folks who just kind of come help and make sure that everyone is feeling welcomed. They help us set up, just make sure everyone's got a name tag, help run the microphone, really just kind of help us keep the wheels moving for the meetup. So we're very grateful for those folks. A little bit of housekeeping before we begin. Anybody who is with us on camera, if you could turn your cameras on so we can see your lovely faces. We do have a TV that has the screen shared, so everyone who is in the audience will be able to see you. And sometimes we take some pictures. So please join us both in spirit and in camera. Anybody in the house, if you want to raise your hand if you have a question, we might have to get to everybody, but we do want to make sure that we are having an interactive discussion. So if you want to raise your hand, we'll get a microphone to you. Anybody who is remote, if you want to ask a question in the chat, again, we'll try to get to Matt is monitoring the chat, and he is going to try to help make sure that we get to all of those things online. And I'm handing things off to Jason.
Thanks so much, Amy. So give the other one. Perfect. All right. Let's see. Just my thing here. Because I didn't have a chance to really memorize this, I wanted to commemorate this moment. And so I'm going to read this a little bit. Sorry about that part. But this whole thing, this downtown Orlando UX thing, it all started when Matt Lavoie, who you can't see if you're online, he's in the middle of the room here, if you're in person, created a meetup group called Downtown UX, or DUX for short, and scheduled the first event in October of 2014. And I thought that was important to point out because when we started marketing tonight's event, we announced it as the 8th anniversary of Downtown UX, but it's actually the 9th. And so for that, that clerical error, I blame the COVID time warp. And so here you'll see on the shared screen a couple of photos from that first event, which had a pretty good turnout of around 25 people. It looks like mostly Power DMS people, though, so I think Matt mostly just convinced his coworkers to join. But at that group, they discussed the mission that Amy just shared, to create opportunities for anyone to learn, discuss, and share knowledge about the field of user experience. And my favorite detail in this whiteboard photo here is that one of the topics that they wanted to teach was what is UX and how do I tell mom? So since that first meetup, DUX has hosted many talks, workshops, discussions, happy hours, coffee meetups, beer meetups, presentation karaoke sessions even. So if any of you have been to a presentation karaoke, raise your hand. We got a lot of new people here, just a handful. That's something that we typically do every year. Where because December, it's you never know who's gonna be in town. It's hard to find a speaker, so we always do something fun in December. And so every year it's kind of become a tradition. We do presentation karaoke, which has the side benefit of teaching you storytelling and presenting on the cuff, which is great. So hope you'll join us for that when we get to December. But tonight is officially, like I said, the 9th anniversary. This is actually the 108th event on Meetup for Downtown Orlando UX. So over 100 gatherings of the UX community, not just in Central Florida. During the pandemic, we had lots of people from all over join us when we went remote with the meetup. So So exciting to be part of that. And I'll introduce our panelists here in a moment, who are all past speakers. But first, I wanted to give a little background on why I'm so excited about tonight's discussion. So I've been attending since I moved to Orlando in 2016, so not since the very beginning, but pretty close. And while I love coming together to learn new things and hear from speakers, it's really the people like all of you and the people online that I get to speak with afterwards about what I do at work and hear how your organizations are structured and hear, how you sell the value of UX in your organization. That's really what is so great about this meetup community to me, is just being able to connect with, talk to people about the industry, talk about how to get into the industry. And so that's exactly what we're going to focus on here tonight. So the questions I have are, they're a little bit just like at a meetup when, we'd be after the meetup hanging out. You can't talk to everybody at one time. You can only talk to a small group of friends, and you might be talking and you hear something that you're interested in the party next to you. So you bounce over there and talk to them about whatever that topic was they were talking about. And then you see somebody who's maybe not included in the group, who you haven't met. So you invite them to come in and everybody introduces themselves. It's community. It's what happens in small groups after the meetups. And so tonight's discussion is going to be formatted a little bit like that. We're going to talk about what each of us are working on, some questions about how organizations are structured, jump into, what people think other new UXers need to learn about the industry, what we wish we learned earlier in our career. We've got a lot of questions kind of just around people that are getting started in their career, so that you might be able to learn from all four of these amazing product design professionals. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and maximize this Zoom window so the folks here can see Saleena and Jasmine online, and everybody online can see all of us. So here we are. And so tonight we have, and I'm going to go in an order that may not make sense to everybody online, and from clockwise here. Erin, Denton. Actually, instead of me doing intros for everybody, why don't we start this off by having each of you talk a little bit about who you are, how long you've been in UX, and what you're currently doing.
I was excited to hear you describe me.
I had notes, but when I realized I couldn't share my screen and read my notes at the same time, I was like, oh, hey, let's do self-intros.
Cool. My name is Erin. Can everyone hear me okay? By the way, online, I'm kind of quiet. My name is Erin. I'm a senior product designer at 15Five, and product design, I kind of went through all the different designs. I started in print and worked my way up to product design. So I feel like I've been in design for a while, but maybe product is more like 3 or 4 years. I can't do math, but anyway, I think I answered all your questions.
Yep. Next up in the Brady Bunch is Avery.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Avery Smith. I'm a senior product designer at Schoox, that's school spelled with an X. I've been a product designer probably for a little over 10 years. But in my entire career, I started off just across the street as an intern at Lure Design in 2006. Was when I officially started my career as more of like a print designer, and then marketing, and then so forth and so on.
All right, next up, Saleena. I might adjust the volume.
Hey everyone, I'm Saleena. I'm a senior product designer at Red Ventures in North Carolina. I would say I'm been a designer for about 10 years. I did pivot to development for maybe a good 3 to 4 years, and then came back to design.
And up next, we have Jasmine.
Hi. Can everyone hear me? I also talk very low naturally. Okay. Hi, I'm Jasmine. I am a senior UX designer at EY, and I've been in design for about 7 years now. The good old-fashioned transition from physical product to digital product.
That's awesome. Thank you all for joining us today. And my intention with a panel, we've had a lot of speakers at UX, a lot of specialists in different areas of UX, a lot of generalists. I managed to end up with 4 people, including myself, who are in the SaaS digital product space as product design title folks for the most part. So we're all kind of very similar specialization, well, generalists within the field. But I'm curious if we go way back. Somebody talked a little bit about your backgrounds. What was the inspiration for you to get into the field? How did you end up getting into product design? And for the rest of the questions, we'll just do kind of popcorn, whoever would like to jump in. Go ahead,
I
Saleena.
can take it. Yeah. For me, I worked at Apple, just the Apple store in New York City, and I watched thousands of customers use a product which I thought was the easiest thing to use and just use it completely wrong. And that was just so interesting, like the psychology behind it, just to see people not understand a form or like a button that was obvious. And it just like became fascinated about how people use things. And I would just watch people on the subway use devices. It was like a weird, creepy thing. But I was just fascinated how people use things. And that's where I started Googling UX. And that's how I kind of stumbled into the career.
Yeah, I think that I first got into the product design when I was getting really heavy into actually print and typing things out and like doing like typography for like books and getting well into like styling things and paragraph and character styles. And then, you know, the advent of the iPhone and smartphones came about. And then I noticed, you know, a similar trend of like things having similar styling, being more usable, being more obvious what things are clickable, what things are just informational, and how a lot of products can really just benefit from that clarity.
I can pick it up with the mic here. Let's see. I'm one of those people that have been doing some kind of art or design ever since I could like hold an implement in my hand. But I think that kind of morphed into going to school and get training in graphic design. But once I started learning that UX and like product design existed, I think what drew me to it was that it was almost like design science, where like you could take all this art and design background, but then you're actually doing research and you're testing things, and like the thing that you put out there, it's like you have evidence that it's good and that it's going to work or that it's the best solution. Whereas in all my previous design life, it was more just like, I don't know, Mad Men presenting things and having a good story that sells instead of having, you know, user data that sells the thing. So that's what kind of drew me to this side of design.
I think similar to Erin, I got into physical product. That was traditionally called product design because it was kind of like design science. I'm really bad at math. So I was like, I don't want to be an engineer because I don't want to do math, but I don't want to just be an artist either. I want to do something in the middle. And so I got into product design in school. And right around the time I was graduating was when people were really getting into apps. Instagram became really big and that kind of thing. And so I made the transition from physical product to digital.
I think that's one of the most exciting things about really tech in general, but the UX industry and specifically is that people come to it from a lot of different backgrounds. And so there is no like one set career path into UX. People get into it from a lot of different passions that kind of lead them into it, which is always interesting to hear everyone's story. To go back to that whiteboard photo from the first Ducks meetup, I'm curious how you explain to your mom or family members or non-technical friends what you do, and like simplify it when somebody that doesn't know anything about tech asks you what you do. How do you explain that?
So my mom is not at all technical, and I figured out a way to describe it. I basically will mention an app that someone knows, like Instagram. And I'm like, well, someone obviously had to build that for you to use it. But then also someone had to decide what's going to happen when you touch certain things, how you view the images and what the order should be for certain things. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm doing. I tell people, like, I study people and then their behaviors and their thoughts, and then I make sure that things are in the right place on the app or on the computer.
I can go next. I feel like it's way easier with product design than it is with UX design. I literally just say I design software applications like on your computer or phone, and that they usually get it. There's no further questions, but if I feel like I want to go deeper, I add an addendum to it and say something like, and I make sure it works the way you expect, or that it's actually solving your problem for you. But most of the time when I just say, yeah, like the app on your phone, I design those, and then they're like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it helps to form real world examples with parents. So a lot of times it's when they're frustrated using a product or they can't figure out where a button is when I kind of explain where I come in and where I would do research to figure out like where would you expect that button to be and why is it not more obvious and where are other buttons like it and where would you expect those to be, and then also to discuss like the product design that goes on top of that UX.
My mom's a really good cook, so I should explain it like cooking. It's like about creating a very delightful meal, and how you pay attention to how all these ingredients come together. So it's kind of like preparing a delicious meal, paying attention to all the very details, and like a good UX is like leaving users like happy and content, much like finishing a tasty meal. And she still doesn't get it. So yeah.
That's awesome. Can each of you share a recent project you worked on and what was the problem you were trying to solve and what kind of challenges did you face in trying to solve that problem?
I can go first. Let's see. Recently, or earlier this year, I got the opportunity to build some tooling in our product that was targeting a new type of user that we hadn't built tooling for in the past. And so we had to get to know them. We did lots of user interviews with this new persona to try to understand what motivated them and like what their problems were. And I think one of the things that came out of it was that the thing we had to build for them was very data heavy, and it had a lot of, you didn't use a lot of your brain to like think about what you were looking at data wise. But then we found that a need of this user was that they couldn't have an increased cognitive load. They had so many things flying at them, every day in their normal day-to-day work, that we had to make sure that this highly complex data dashboard didn't overload them cognitively with everything else that they're trying to deal with. And that was a very interesting challenge to design for, where it needs to be technical and specific, but it has to be so understandable that it's not contributing to that high cognitive load that's this persona is like dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I guess I don't know if that fully answers the question or not, but
yeah,
okay.
It sounds challenging.
A recent problem that I'm still trying to solve, honestly, is with a product redesign and refresh. And it's in the, I guess, the ask when we were given the problem was like, well, it needs to be redesigned. And then, understanding what was meant by redesign. Like, do you just mean refreshing like the look of it? Do you mean actually changing the feel of it or addressing possibly some user pains or concerns? And so actually pushing back and convincing, the stakeholders that it was actually more of a complete like UX rehaul and even reorganization and navigation to fix a lot of the issues that they wanted to fix on top of the UI change. So I say that's probably a kind of a current thing that I'm working on.
My previous project was within the data layer of UI, so it was also very data heavy. And it was I was leading a project with multiple designers and researchers and content writers, and they all worked on different data products within EY, and we were trying to make a cohesive experience across them, almost like a suite of products. And obviously those different teams have different ways of working, so trying to get everyone under the same umbrella was very hard.
So I work on a financial website and we were redesigning the navigation. And I think some people had a whimsical idea of like, instead of saying banking, mortgages, like very direct terms, someone wanted to use like my wallet, my money, something more personal to them. But like part of like my personal what I hear people use our site, it's always not the actual direct user. It's always like a real estate agent or a broker or a friend that's looking up mortgage rates on the behalf of that person. So something like my wallet, my money didn't really make as much sense. But that would make more sense if it was a personal account. So there was like some testing behind that, and we realized that didn't really work or make sense to them at all.
That's awesome. And with those problems that you're working on, what tools and software do you use to get things done? And just kind of run through the list of like what basic tools, what are the top tools you use on a day-to-day basis?
We have to use Teams, which I don't love. I'm not gonna lie to you, I hate that. But we have to use Teams, a lot of Outlook. I personally like to keep my own little planner in Microsoft of things that I just need to do throughout the day. The Notes app on MacBook, and we use a lot of Miro and Figma and FigJam for collaboration and workshops. And then for research, we use Optimal Workshop.
For my job, we use Loom a lot to kind of go through and share ideas, especially from like the designer to the stakeholder, or from the UX researcher to the designer or product team. And that helps a lot because we have a very big time zone difference with us and the other part of the team, and it helps with working asynchronous, especially when we use it with like Slack and other kind of Google Doc trackers as well.
We use Figma and FigJam a lot. We also use Slack. We use Zoom for like all of our calls and stuff like that. We have Full Story, so I like to use that a lot for creepily looking at what the user behaviors are happening in our product. And then I don't know if anyone else's companies use Gong, but I think it's like more targeted to be like a sales instrument, but our design team uses it. We like put the Gong assistant on all of our Zoom calls with customers, and it automatically records them, makes the transcripts for them. And like they have a bunch of AI tools now where like I can just search things like users who said this or this keyword. And it's like, I don't know how it figures it out. I guess it's just artificial intelligence. And it's a really nice repository to keep all of the like qualitative recordings and stuff like that and actually have it be useful. So that's what we use.
Yeah, we have Gong at Sprout as well, and it really is a sales tool, but it's very helpful for UX research as well. And Full Story is also amazing. We do a every other week session where we share Full Story recordings that are interesting or highlight a user problem with our product team, which is a lot of fun. All right. How do you gather and incorporate user feedback into your design process? And does that help you to be more design-led in prioritizing what gets built?
We have a fantastic user research team that uses a lot of different software. They're kind of up between different solutions right now. We've used Miro in the past. We've also just used like FigJam and incorporated like prototypes that the designers have made up specifically for testing maybe like an A and B solution. And then just basic like Google Forms and making sure that the questions are really getting to the heart of the problem that we're trying to solve.
Before we move on though, how do you get those Google Forms in the hands of users? Do you use something in-app, or do you send out emails, or how do you do the surveys?
So we have a lot of like demo teams and partners that help us kind of test things like as like kind of front beta testers, and our UX researcher is the ones that like really schedules those ahead of time and tries to stay in sync with like the product manager and the designer's progress, so we can kind of test things as we're developing it.
It's awesome.
I can go next. So I conduct user interviews with both internal and external users. So what's kind of interesting about our product is we use our product, and we have at least, I guess we have all three personas for our product within our own company as well. So if I want to talk to someone, show them a quick idea, I could do it like the same day with someone at our company that is that persona user. And so we'll do a lot of incorporating user feedback that way. We also use Pindo for like popping up little like in-app surveys and stuff like that, which we can target to like specific pages, behaviors, or personas, or even companies and stuff like that. And then we also have our sales team and like our customer success teams. When they hear feedback from customers, they put it into a big repository that all of our product managers are in and kind of organizing and grooming. And so I've used that as well, where it's like I've heard something once from a user, and then I'll kind of go check the repository and see how many sales calls it's coming up in and stuff like that. But yeah, that all of it kind of comes together in the process. It's a little messy, but it works.
I also want to mention, because you brought up AI solutions, we're attempting to use Guru, which is combining not only our knowledge library of like Atlassian and Confluence documents, but also user stories and user testing to make it so, if we have a question about well, how many skills do you need to do to access this, or like what's the typical solution of this outcome, then it makes it a little easier to find that without searching for just the right person to ask.
Jasmine or Saleena?
So I create design systems, so my users are internal. They're developers and designers. They're my teammates. So a lot of times the user feedback is them coming to me complaining. But other than that, a lot of it is when I do conduct how I set things up in Figma or looking at the design process, it's really looking at pretty much just go ahead and break things. I want them to push it as possible as far as what they need to design, just to find that happy medium of where can we push it. Obviously we can't do it 100%, but a lot of it is just real-time feedback, and then also looking at their process as a team and figuring out how can we incorporate all those bottlenecks and kind of make it more flowing and faster.
EY is pretty massive, so there's lots of different design teams, so we don't all do the same things. But for my team, when I was on the previous project that I was on, we were doing a lot of usability testing, and we had rounds of it. So we would do one round, make the changes that were mentioned, do another round with different participants to ensure that there's no bias there about it. And so we would try to incorporate that in as often as possible. And we also have customer success teams. They kind of work ad hoc. So it's not like they're specifically on your team. They kind of move around. But yeah, there's different ways that we go and try to get as much feedback as we can. Much like Saleena and Erin, a lot of the things that I'm working on are internal. So most of the people that I need to talk to are all internal people, which somehow seems harder to get participants for in research than if they were external, but we try our best.
That's a really important note, to be working on things internal within a product team versus external, and then things that are very vertical, focused on a specific set of features versus horizontal, things like design systems or global utilities within a product or organization. Would you say that your work is horizontal or vertical in that sense, that you're focused on specific feature development or focused on navigation, or is it a mix of both?
My team is literally called horizontal, like Horizon, and it used to be called horizontal as well. So yeah, we're spread across all different vertical teams that focus on each financial product.
on my team, our squad focuses on two specific feature areas. But as a whole, R&D will kind of have conversations about the horizontal elements. We don't have a team that only works on that. So it's like a little bit of both. But yeah.
Yeah, so my team technically just focuses on the project that we're working on at that time, that feature. And then we also have a design system team that focuses on kind of growing and integrating the design system at the same time as we're using it. So it's kind of mostly horizontal, but we're also giving feedback, a lot of feedback to the design system team to kind of make our design system more reusable and more functional as well.
I think it depends on what I'm working on. At EY, you kind of jump from different projects. It's like being a consultant, but within EY. So sometimes I have worked on the design systems team. Sometimes I'm working on something else. So it really depends on what product I'm on.
So, just gonna change gears a little bit. If you had a friend that wanted to get into the field of UX and maybe is looking to change careers or like as their first career get into the UX field, what advice would you give them? And because I think all of us are kind of generalists, if they were interested in a specialization versus being a broad generalist, would that change your answer?
I guess I would recommend a book, James Garrett, The Elements of User Experience. That was kind of my entryway from kind of more print design and print focus into like understanding what the development of a interactive design means and how you go from like a flat design that is not interactive to something that has states and has considerations like that. So that would probably be the first thing I point them towards.
Let's see. As far as the generalist versus specialist, I don't know if this is like a hot take, but I kind of almost wouldn't encourage someone to go straight for specialist unless you've already worked in tech somewhere. And I just feel like I don't see that many entry-level jobs for specialist roles. And I used to be an instructor in UX, and this was a problem we had with a lot of students where they would get very interested in certain areas like information architecture, and they want to go straight into a junior role as information architecture designer, but we just didn't see them like in the job market. So I think it could be helpful to maybe go in with like the generalist approach just to kind of get your foot into the industry and get some experience, and then kind of decide how you want to grow that after into like a specific specialization. So I guess that's my answer to that. But as far as like the books go, I really like Marty Kagan. So I definitely recommend all of his books. The first one is more targeted towards like, I think general product, whereas like the rest are more like product management type books. But he has this concept about, I think is really important when you're getting into product is how you advocate for the work you do and how you communicate about it. And he has this whole like paradigm about missionary work versus mercenary work and how that's the best way to get, you know, buy-in among your peers and how to get that kind of change that everyone is like empowered in. And so it's less about how to do the product design and more about like how you do it once you get there, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's my take.
So I definitely agree with Erin that I would probably suggest that the person getting started should just be a generalist. If they are someone who's like, no, I want to be a specialist, I know exactly what I want to do, especially if it's research related. I just graduated from grad school, so I would probably recommend going to grad school for HCI, just because you're probably not going to learn a lot of design related things in HCI. It's very research heavy. And so I'd probably tell them to do that if they want to be in large amounts of debt. And if they want to be a generalist, I would just give them, I have a lot of different design books that I would give them, both physical and digital design. I think sometimes reading about physical design does kind of help frame your mind around the digital side as well, because they correlate so much.
Yeah, given this answer, I answer this question a lot at boot camps differently. The answer I give to designers is very different from developers. For designers, I think it's very important to just get your foot in the door. So whatever that job is, you're an expert at it. You're going to do it. You're going to do it all. Because you never know what that company or that product is going to do to change your mind or become that specialist. Like I kind of stumbled into design systems. I didn't know what it was. And it just so happened to be the right timing, right moment for my skill set and the people I was around. So it's just like, you just have to know, like, I want to do design. It doesn't matter if it's research or UI or design systems, just get your foot in the door, make connections on LinkedIn. So generous is probably like the way to go. But once you're inside that company, you want to stay with them, or once you have 3 years of experience, then I say, yeah, specialize if you can. Yeah, it's just be able to taste everything and try everything to see what you really like. Because UX is just it's a lot. So being able to do all of it, it's huge. Yeah.
That point about getting your foot in the door, Saleena, I think is a great one. I think that's a lot of the conversations that I have after UX meetups is how do you get that job to get your foot in the door? And then once you do get a taste of the different flavors of type of work you could do in this field, narrowing down what you do enjoy and hopping maybe to a specialization or to something in a different product space, for instance, can give you a different perspective, and that's great. One thing that's always interesting to me, especially talking to folks coming out of boot camps where you learn the hard skills and the questions and the tools that you'll use in the industry, is that a lot of times that focuses on, very good sound process technique. But I'm curious, what percentage of your job is dealing with conflicting opinions and feedback from stakeholders, and how do you resolve those conflicting opinions?
That's all of it. That's like most of it.
100%.
That's it feels like it should be a separate job. That's how often you have to do it.
I was thinking about this earlier because we got sent the questions ahead of time, and I was really trying to put a percentage on it. And like, I honestly think as annoying as it is when it happens and as difficult it is when it happens, I really only think it's like 15% of my job. And I think how do we do it? Like, how do we find alignment? I think we just get the people we need together in a room or on a call, and we try to get that alignment however we can. And if it's design related or user experience related, it's usually a little bit more like in my court where I can come with, my experience, the evidence that I have, any evidence I have around why I think we should be doing what we should be doing. And I might have opinions about technical things or strategy things as well that my PM counterparts and my engineering manager counterparts have a bit more of a leg in that race. But, you don't win every argument. So sometimes you just have to kind of concede, and because you all want the same thing at the end, which is to, have a good experience for your users.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to always keep in mind, that it's ultimately about the user of the product, and kind of bringing it back to that point can might help to, alleviate some of the arguments. But I think oftentimes I find myself in the middle of two people that are saying the same thing but mean two different things when they say it. And it's more about making sure that everyone is in alignment about what the terms mean and what the experience should be. And then once everyone's in alignment, then we can work truly on like what the solution should be. Yeah, a lot of times just putting that into the design work, coming up with simple prototypes that people can actually test those assumptions on and see them in a very, very limited way, kind of helps tip the scales one way or another.
Yeah.
You also have anything to add?
I was going to say, there's a quote that stood with me with Apple's keynote where they're like, for every 1,000 no's, there's like one yes. Like the amount of no's I say every day, because it's just, you're protecting the user, you're protecting the product. And there's times where it says yes, like, yeah, we can go with that. We can ride with that.
I like what you said, Avery, about like finding the common ground, kind of the translating between the different parties and making sure people are speaking the same languages by showing instead of telling, and being able to talk with engineers about feasibility and product, about viability, and all of those things is kind of what I feel like a lot of my job is as a product design manager. Maybe related to that last question, what do you feel like is the most important skill for UXers in product design world today?
I would say curiosity is a really, really, really important skill. Even going back to the previous question, that it's a lot easier to get people on your side if you're curious about them. You don't just show up and say, like, here's what we're going to do. Why do you have that stance on this particular feature? Why do you think that it's not going to work out? Or even just being curious about things outside of design. So often, a lot of the processes that I think about or the solutions that I come up with aren't always from the things that you learn in school or in the boot camps of that process. It's from reading something else, looking at different industries and how they handle different things, just asking the right questions, or even asking wrong questions and then getting a right answer. Just being comfortable charting in new territories, especially with the new technologies coming out. You have to be comfortable wading in the water a little bit.
That answer.
I'd say flexibility is pretty important, and not getting settled on one solution, that is the only solution. A lot of times in my work, I find that there is a lot of potential solutions to a single problem, and it really is kind of more of an emotional decision to figure out how you want to go about solving that problem. And so I still have to tell myself this today when I get a design or a prototype that I'm really, really falling in love with, to take a step back and just realize that it's still could all change and possibly be something completely different.
I can chime in here. Definitely +1 to everything that's already been said, especially the curiosity. I feel like we can't overstate how important of a skill that is to have curiosity about any problem you're approaching, any person you're trying to learn about, or etc. But to add there, I think about as a junior designer, sometimes you might get a little fixated on perfection, and like things need to be perfect before you show it to someone or to put it out there. And I think that's definitely something to get really comfortable with as a skill, is just to kind of let go of that, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And sometimes the only way you learn is by actually putting it in production in front of your users, and you'll learn more that way than like just massaging until it's like this absolute perfect work of art. So I guess letting go of that a little bit is the skill I would recommend.
I would say how everything connects, and that it varies depending on the product you're working on. But I think this goes a little bit as far as like what Jasmine said, that curiosity, kind of have to do your homework on the product. Just know as much as you possibly can. Like for me, I know so much about SEO. I didn't mean to, but I just now am an SEO expert. It's so much knowledge, I know. And it's part of that's knowing all that for an algorithm of Google, because that's our job. And that helps me inform myself. It's creating these designs and forming the business strategy behind it. So I can have these like higher conversations, just not about the UI, the research, but just more part of like product management, the strategy behind these designs. And then I'm going to mention one that I know no one wants to hear, but it's learning how to code. And this is me because I'm a developer, but that also goes part of the connecting, understanding how your designs translate into code live will make you so much better as a designer, and allows you to have that conversation with your developers.
I love it. That's a great set of top skills: curiosity, flexibility, experimentation, big picture thinking, like being able to back up and see kind of how things fit together, and then learning how it technically comes together with code as well is also, very helpful. I used to always be the designer who advocated for every designer to be able to code. I think it's less relevant, especially if you're working in a feature zone, to know front-end code, but it's so helpful to be able to talk through how something's going to get built with a web engineer, and like really understand that. So I think any bit of dabbling that you can do to get into that side of the three-legged stool, I think will help you in your career as well, for sure. With that, we're at about 8 o'clock Eastern, so I want to make sure I saved a little bit of time for some Q&A. So I think with that, we'll switch gears, and anybody that's online, we're able to hear you too, just like the rest of the panelists. When you speak, everybody here in the audience will be able to hear you. And I'll turn my laptop to point toward the audience when questions are being asked here, if anybody has questions. Oh, there's one question in the chat. Brittany, do you want to come off of chat and ask, or it's very tiny on the screen? Oh, you want me to ask? All right, I can do that. Brittany asked, in design, there can be a lot of opinions, feedback. How do you synthesize what information is important and what's not in terms of final design direction?
Some of that funneling has to do with time. Like, if we already have a set list of things, you can't show up and add something else, or I have to pull something off because I don't want me and my team to get bogged down. But when it comes to their actual opinions and feedback and how I funnel out some of them, I was always taught that you're allowed to have an opinion and feedback on design, but you have to say why you don't like it. You can't just say, well, I don't like it. That's not enough. What about it? Don't you like it? Is it something that's directly correlated to the user experience of it? Is it, this is going to give users a hard time, or it gets jammed up in this space of it? These colors aren't accessible. You have to give it something tangible. If you're just saying, I don't like it, and you're not giving me anything else, then I'll put it on the back burner. And then if you come back with a good answer, then I'll start thinking more about it. But you can't just say, I don't like it.
All right, I saw that Wes is showing the audience, so I pinned that screen as well. Anybody else in the in-person audience have a question? Oh. Go for it, Wes.
I'm not showing myself. I don't know how to do that. All right. Anyway, okay, here we go. Yeah. So what advice did you get that you would like to share with others that when you were starting your career? Like that, I think that would be really interesting to hear from each of you. Sorry for pointing at my chest.
Interesting. I don't know. Matt, do you remember what you said to me? I don't. Yeah. Okay. I would probably say, ask you why you want to do it.
I think one of the best advice I got when I was starting out was never present something that you don't want to actually be made. Like, don't give options that you just to give options. Just, anytime you present something, if you want that to be the final product, we'll put your name behind it.
Anyone else?
I don't know if anyone gave me advice, but I think I realized content is king, and what the page says is so much more important than the actual design or box or anything like that. People are coming for information, and that's the design right there. So yeah, I think content's king, and they kind of win every battle.
Sorry, if we can, we both had an answer to Brittany's question. So if you don't mind us jumping back to it. It's a really good question. I like this question. I think there's a model that Teresa Torres uses called the ladder of evidence. And it's a way you can kind of think about how much you should weigh the evidence you're getting in terms of how you apply it to your design. And so at the bottom of the ladder is things that would basically be considered hearsay in court. Like hypothetically, if I was in this situation, I would do this. Not very high evidence. We don't want to incorporate that feedback. But if you go to the top of the ladder, you get things like observing the user trying to do the thing and running into the problem. And that's a higher form of evidence that we can incorporate as feedback. And so at least as far as user feedback goes, I like to look at it through that lens when I'm trying to decide how to synthesize it and what to incorporate.
I was going to say follow-up questions are the best tool because a lot of times, especially if you're getting different opinions from different people, and if those opinions are very short or hyperbolic, then you might not, those opinions might be saying the same thing. They might emotionally be coming from the same place, or they might be, completely coming from different places, and understanding whether two things are essentially coming from the same UX problem or whether they're trying to solve two opposing UX problems, I think is just a good thing to determine before you proceed.
Two questions? Should I just do one? Okay.
Has anyone led like UX teams and just any advice on like UX team leading, any habits or resources that's kind of fueled your UX leadership?
I'll jump in on that one. I manage a team of, I mentioned horizontal and vertical zones, a very vertical feature zone at Sprout Social focused on the publishing tools within the product that we use. I manage 3 designers on my team. I was 4 recently. I never really wanted to be a manager. I didn't plan to go into helping people grow and succeed. But and since then, I think for the last 7, 8 years I've been managing designers, I find that most designers feel that way too, that they just want to keep doing what they're doing. They want to keep solving the problems. They want to be in the IC work, and I can't blame them. But I would say that anybody, if you're passionate about mentorship, if you're passionate about seeing other people grow, if you've ever taught anybody, a lot of the managers that I've been in have taught in some capacity, in a classroom setting, as an adjunct professor, anything really. If you care about the success of other people, you probably make a great manager, and you probably get more joy out of seeing other people grow in their skill, and seeing more work done by working through other designers to get that work done than you would doing the work yourself. And so it's kind of interesting as a product design manager, I'm not in the day-to-day of UX work that often. More of my responsibility is people management and creating an environment for success. But I think having that long background in the field and then making that transition into helping other people it's just a lot of fun. So
You say it's mostly conflict resolution?
it's a lot of conflict resolution.
I have not such a serious question, but between answering questions and asking questions, what do you like better?
Asking questions. I will always prefer that. Even if it's something that I can answer pretty confidently, I'm just curious to see what other people's answers are. We could both be right on the exact same thing, but just have different points of view. So I always like hearing what people think.
I think I definitely have to +1 to asking questions. I had to think about it because I think when I do stuff like this, my brain switches back into teacher mode and I'm like, let me tell you everything. Ask me any question. But I think my more natural state is definitely like, oh, that's interesting. What about this? Or like keep going and going and going.
Yeah, I'll +2 to that. I think that asking questions is kind of my natural state as well. And I can usually tell when I'm in the flow or starting to get in the flow of a project is when I have a lot of questions. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, well, now things are really revving up because I have so many questions about how things are supposed to go. So.
Yeah, I would say asking questions, especially when it comes around data. You kind of start forming new questions of why this is happening. Yeah, definitely asking questions.
Because of that curiosity character trait that we talked about.
Did I take your mic? That's John. Any other questions from the audience?
So I'm about to finish a boot camp, and I know there's a couple other people who are about to enter the job force. So my question is, what can we do to stand out in the job market as a UX designer?
I mean, someone who came from 2 boot camps, you have to be really scrappy. There's a lot of competition out there, and I kind of hacked it by becoming a developer, then transitioning into design. And I kind of just knew that was my way in. But I was prepared. I had a portfolio, I had case studies, and they weren't just your regular case studies. There were things I was passionate about, and I didn't spend a whole year on them. Like, I read the Design Sprint by Google Ventures, which is like, you do this whole thesis in 7 days. I did it within a weekend, 3 days. Put the pressure on yourself to get something done within 3 days and just put it out there. And that's like writing a LinkedIn post or a blog about your findings. You don't have to be an expert. People are curious about what you learned. And that kind of shows a little bit of like that curiosity, also confidence that you're willing to put yourself out there. And get attention from that way as well. I used to go to hackathons, and hackathons are very scary, but they're the most exciting piece. Like, you learn so much about yourself in a 3-day sprint. And give presentations. Like, I gave a presentation, this meetup. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, I'm going to do it. Yeah, giving presentations is probably the best thing to put yourself out there. And you also get to learn about that subject so much more because you have to prepare for it.
I'll add to that I think anything you're going to present, like as a case study, as a part of the interview process, I think if you can kind of get to a spot with whatever project that is, that you have a very strong perspective about it, like what are all the things that you believe about what you worked on, so that as you're talking about it, you could ask questions. It's almost like talking about anything that you're passionate about that you've worked on. I think when I've interviewed like junior designers in the past, and I've asked like very specific follow-up questions that maybe weren't on script for them. When they had that strong perspective of their work, they were able to answer it, I think, in a way where you can kind of see their design thinking and like what their, how their brain works when they approach design.
Yeah, I want to kind of plus one what Saleena was saying, kind of build on like just showing up and participating in your community, and especially in the type of work that you want to end up doing, or that you find interesting or you think is good, and finding those people or those organizations and like asking, hey, do you want an internship, or is there anything that you'd recommend doing, or any books you recommend that I read or anything like that. But a lot of times just being in the space where you where the people that you are like, and it's showing up to those spaces a lot and being very visible and posting a lot could kind of help separate you from a lot of the competitors.
Yeah, +1 to that, showing up. I also think that being able to, similarly to what Erin was getting at, being able to have this case studies that you have in your portfolio and being able to tell the story about them, not just here's the step-by-step of what happened. Tell a story like in a magazine about it. Tell me what happened, what you thought was going to happen, any plot twists that could have shown up. It makes it feel like you were actually in it, and it wasn't just something that you were doing. Because if you just say this happened, then this, it doesn't feel like you were in it. And then it makes your story unique, because anyone, even if other classmates are doing that same project, you put your perspective in it.
Sorry, I had one more thing to add, that it's might also be good to look into finding organizations that do what you believe in and things that you honestly care about, and finding ways that you can take your talent or take your career and actually help like those organizations, and offering them some maybe pro bono work or free work or something like that could also help get your name out there and just make you feel good too.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, Matt used to say that too all the time. And the meetup is like, just find excuses to do work that's outside of the boot camp or outside of, some real world work, however you can do it. Before we jump to, I think Matt has the mic for the next question. Before we do, we've got one more online. Fuak, do you want to ask your question, or do you want me to read it for you?
Sure, I can read my questions. So
Awesome.
I've heard any of you mentioned that you've done usability testings and some user research. So I was wondering, are you also doing that with UX researchers, or how does the collaboration look like with UX researchers?
Yeah, so I think it comes in multiple phases as the project goes on, but say like in the beginning of the project, when we're just kind of formulating our assumptions about what the solutions might be, we might get with the UX researcher to first do some research about the pain points that users are having the current experience, and maybe get them to answer exactly what those pain points are in the navigation of that experience, to get as exact as we can. And then as we start developing solutions, to then of course start, showing maybe our beta teams or our beta developers, our users, some early wireframes or prototypes, and then getting feedback about like, well, how does this make you feel compared to the previous experience?
We don't have UX researchers, so I'm the UX researcher and also the designer and also the information architect and also et cetera, et cetera.
So your collaboration with research is going well then.
That's right.
Sense.
That's why it's only 15%.
I'll jump into that one too. Similar to Erin, and this has been true of the last two organizations I've worked at. It's the UX or product design role has been entirely generalist, and so you're responsible for doing all of the research necessary for the projects that you're on. But in both of the organizations I've been in, we did have a dedicated research. We have one dedicated UX researcher at Sprout Social, and it's the same role that the person at the last organization I worked at had, was standardizing your research, standardizing how we store the research, and leading research and organizing research for things that are kind of across the company. But for anything that's within your product area, that person is there to give you the resources you need, give you advice when you need it. But as a generalist, the research is up to you usually.
All right, I got a question. So you've all contributed in significant and lovely ways to this community, and I was wondering if you have any memories of, whether it's with Do UX or with other meetups, communities, AIGA, wherever, ways that meetups and communities have impacted you all. Yeah. I can go first if you want.
You have the floor.
I actually wanted to say, Saleena has contributed so much to this meetup, but you've all contributed and you've spoken. But one of the things that comes to mind immediately is actually Jasmine reframing empathy versus compassion has stuck with me. Like, that was such a good talk. And that slight reframing has stuck with me since I've listened to that talk. And I still think about it, like, not daily, but like on a pretty regular basis. So that's my answer.
And that was 2020.
Matt, I was gonna say the same thing. Like Jasmine's that presentation was so good. Like I was moved, and again, it was like the pandemic, and like I had no one to go to. I was just in my room by myself, and I was just like, "Oh my god, that was amazing!" I have no one to tell. But that was probably one of the best like presentations. It's like kind of an honor to be on this panel for as well. It's kind of cool. Also, the karaoke presentation, that's also a banger. People still come up to me about my presentation about bread randomly. Uh, but yeah.
For those who weren't there, Saleena gave an entire diatribe as part of a karaoke presentation of "Is it a sandwich?"
Mm. I will say that, and this kind of ties back into what you were saying, Saleena, about the importance of putting yourself out there. I think my talk here was the one, I always contribute this talk to like the one that pushed my speaking career further, because this was the largest group of people I'd ever spoken to. I think my professor showed up for it too, my undergrad professor. And because of that, I was able to talk at my alma mater, and then I was able to talk at conferences and all these other things. So I definitely am a strong believer in putting yourself out there, and just talking about the things you're really passionate about. And I've made such great friends here, and Wes, who has always been a great mentor to me. I don't know, all my memories here are so positive, and everyone here is so positive. So if you ever want to give a talk here or anywhere, but mainly here, you should do it.
Great plug. Any other memories from folks?
I can add
Oh,
a-
good.
No, okay, I was gonna say I could add a memory here that actually you were involved in this, Matt. So I used to run a meetup called Code for Orlando that was part of the Code for America Brigade network, and we would do a lot of community-centered projects. And I was hosting a hackathon, and I think Matt and a few other people from the city made a journey map of the fencing permitting process. And the reason why that's cool is because after the hackathon, the actual fencing permit department at the city of Orlando hung it up in their offices and used it to influence how they were trying to like fix these pain points in the like permitting application process for the city. Which, you know, the work they've done overall without our journey map and the whole process is digital services they offer is a lot better than it used to be. But I always think that's fun. We did a thing just as a community, and then the city was like, yeah, sure, we'll hang it up and we'll take a look at it and make some changes.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the most impactful things, for one thing, the empathy versus sympathy talk, I think about almost daily. I think it was super good. Anytime someone brings up like having empathy or sympathy, it's first thought in my head. But besides that, one of the most impactful things I've done for AIGA Orlando was actually help lead the Changemaker series, which was when we took a few just a few volunteer organizations in the community. Usually it would be like healthcare related, or like children's art, like Art Reach. And then we would offer the services of volunteers, the designers around the town. And it was a good exercise in just learning and practicing design thinking, and kind of teaching people like not to go in with a solution in mind, but to actually interview with the organization and generally find out what they are lacking, to figure out what they could use their talents to help them fill. And then we had like a really cool showcase at the very end, and everyone, like, you know, they made like, you know, shirts and prizes and stuff for the orgs and stuff, and everyone, they were all very, very grateful for it. So that was just like a really cool showcase of like what design could do for like in the real world. Another one that happened during the pandemic kind of sprang up was Where Are the Black Designers? That was a really cool community that was just like a really cool space for designers or creatives of color to kind of come together and just sort of celebrate each other. So I thought that was a really cool meetup.
I just want to give a special shout out to Clubhouse. I met so many designers around the world, place like from Google, Nike, and we would spend hours just talking. And I met Jordan, who's in the audience. Clubhouse was amazing to just connect with designers and just have a free-flowing conversation.
I think that's a great question to wrap us up on. I think we're right about at time. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your experience with the community that's not just here in Orlando, but everyone online as well. And thanks for hanging in there online, folks, as well. We appreciate you joining the hybrid events.
Hey, Jason, I just wanted to add, we've talked a lot about Jasmine's presentation. You can watch that, go back and watch it on YouTube. We did record it. So if you're interested, because we've really chatted it up a lot here tonight, please go back and watch it if you get a chance. You'll really get a lot out of it. And it can maybe change the way you approach things in the future. So if you get a chance, that would be awesome.
It's probably the best one on the YouTube. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen here for our outro slides.
Guys, can we get a round of applause for everyone and our panelists and awesome questions? And thank you guys all so much for just, first off, sharing as previous speakers, but also sharing with us tonight. That is very, very kind. So on the screen, you see all of our various presenters. If you want to take a quick screenshot for those online or a little snap, their LinkedIn profiles are on there. Connect with people. Growing our networks is always a great thing to do, and one of the benefits of going to meetups like this. So thank you to everyone. Little fastener ending things of any community announcements. Is there anyone who's at a company that is hiring? Do you have any events that are happening this week? Anything coming up this month that anyone would like to announce that's happening? You all are the key that unlocks things that are going on. Yes.
Yeah. So this month I'm going to Afrotech, which is a huge conference in Austin, Texas. And there is an online or virtual option, but it's really great. And there's going to have a UX meetup I'll be attending. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Awesome. All right. So next week, there is a product tank meetup, which is after this meetup, one of my favorite groups to be involved with. This one's my favorite. Don't look at me like that. Really great involved organizers, great people, wonderful speakers, a really great community. So that's going to be next week on the 26th at the Credo Conduit. I believe that's where it is, right?
So there's a TBD.
TBD. It was there before. So yeah, if you definitely get hooked up with Meetup with Product Tank Orlando. They have wonderful speakers, wonderful meetup, really great group of people. Another meetup that is going to be tomorrow is the Handful Printing and Goods. It's a community meetup with the AIG Orlando. And I didn't know who they were, and I looked it up, and actually it looks really cool, especially if you're interested in printed things, more physical products. Looking at the event, it looked really awesome. Yeah, like super close. And SIGDoc is coming up. We've been announcing this for a couple of months now. It is going to be next week. So that will be taking place in town. There is an internship opened up with Home Depot. I have it on good authority that it is a great company to work for. So if you are interested in looking for an internship, that is open right now. So go ahead and log on to the Home Depot website and apply for that. And a whole bunch of other just great resources that we have. We've got a QR code that'll help you grab all of them. So grab a screenshot, grab a little snap of that, and that'll give you a couple resources, including our Slack and a couple other Slacks and things like that. And yeah, so we've got a little bit of time still. So what we like to do is after this, we've spent some time, a little bit of time in community to begin with. We spent some time together learning, and then we really like to spend a little time just socially together. So we have our Schoox, which is our social UX, that we just really get to actually spend intentional time together and say, hey, we want to be in community. We want to spend time together. And so we stay, we hang out. So that is what we're going to move into. Because we do have time. But thank you all. We'd love to connect with you on Meetup. If you're not on there, we've got our YouTube channel that Wes mentioned, where you can go see previous speeches that we've had, our Slack channel. And that is our Meetup. So thank you, folks.
Thanks everybody for coming out.